In other news we're tracking for you this morning, after a year of a devastating COVID-19 lockdown, the Athol Fugard Theatre has closed down. Its founder and benefactor, Eric Abrahams, says he couldn't be convinced that it would be financially viable and that it could reopen safely in the foreseeable future. The theatre was founded now over 10 years ago and in that short time made a huge contribution to the cultural landscape of Cape Town and of South Africa. It is, of course, named after internationally acclaimed South African playwright Athol Fugard. Its closure seen as the end of an era. Let's speak to another theatre legend now. David Kramer directed no less than 6 plays at the theatre, including District 6 Kanala, Cat and the Kings and Blood Brothers. David joins us now via video link in Cape Town. Good morning, David. It's great to have you with us on the show this morning. Unfortunately, under these circumstances, what a sad day for the country, for Cape Town in particular.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, we're all heartbroken here in Cape Town. I think that the Fugard was certainly, you know, a jewel in the crown of Cape Town theatre, and we've lost that now. So we're all feeling very disheartened about that.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we've been speaking to government throughout this morning about a related issue, that 300 million rand relief fund that was meant to bolster artists and the sector through this year of a lockdown. And on that score, you know, what could have been done to prevent this from happening?
Well, I don't think there was any relationship with government as far as Eric Abraham and the Fugard was concerned. It was a privately funded theatre. And as far as I know, there were never any funds received from government. Yeah.
I mean, therein lies the problem, I suppose. You know, as we talk about this 1 year of a lockdown, the contribution made by the sector to our economy, but also just how important the arts has been for the mental well-being of the country throughout this year of the pandemic and the lockdown.
Yes, well, you know, I suppose this brings it into focus, and you know, I think people are realizing how much they miss the conviviality of meeting in the foyer of a theatre, you know, being together in an auditorium and an audience. I mean, certainly for me, it feels like the loss of a really dear friend, and in some ways, I kind of went into mourning about it. I was feeling very, very sad and not motivated in any kind of way for the first few months of the year. Yeah, you know, it's theatre is very, very important to just in terms of bringing people together, telling our stories. Sharing a common identity, I think.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the issue of telling our stories, you've played such an integral part of telling the story of South Africa's often difficult history. I'm just looking at some of the work that you've done at the Fugard over the years, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, Cat and the Kings, first performance in 2012 at the Fugard. As we reflect on the importance of the sector in telling those important stories.
Yeah, well, that was a revival of the very successful Cat and the Kings that, you know, that toured overseas, the West End and Broadway and so on. So it was a great way to start my relationship at the Fugard Theatre. And, you know, I had a wonderful working relationship with them. It was always a pleasure to produce my musicals there. But yeah, my work does focus on what, you know, on the sort of historical, political aspects of Cape Town, mainly focused around District 6 and, you know, the destruction of District 6 and the subsequent consequences of that.
I actually saw Cat and the Kings, I believe it was at the Baxter Theatre, at one of the first shows at the Baxter Theatre.
Yes, it actually started at the Dock Road Theatre, another little theatre that closed down which was at the waterfront. We first started that in '95, and then of course it had all the international success for quite a few years, and then it came back to Cape Town and was produced at the Baxter Theatre, which is probably where you saw it. That was early 2002, around there.
Yeah. And that was one of the first things you did with the Fugard, and that relationship went on to include Blood Brothers, Orpheus in Africa, District 6 Kanala, Lang Arm, to name just a few. Am I leaving anything out?
No, those are the big musicals that I did with them. And what was what was really wonderful and important was that, I was given the opportunity to produce completely new musicals. A musical like Orpheus in Afrika, it's a difficult musical to cast, and it was a beautiful production. And I just remain so grateful that I was given that opportunity and given the support by Eric Abram to bring new work to the theatre, rather than just the success. They didn't just produce sort of overseas successes. They took a risk on local, indigenous, original South African work.
Yeah, absolutely. David, as you continue with mourning the Fugard, as many of us will do with you as well, what work do you have in the pipeline?
Well, as I said to you, this year has really knocked me back quite a lot, and with not knowing where we're going in the foreseeable future, I unfortunately haven't felt very inspired or motivated to really sit down and tackle something new. Writing a musical takes quite a bit of effort, and in my case, I tend to write the book, the lyrics, and the music myself. So I would need to have a really wonderful idea and inspired. At the moment, I can't tell you that I've got something up my sleeve, but I have been writing a few songs, and that has kept me busy.
Yeah. Look, I think many South Africans can relate with the position that you find yourself in. David, it's been such a pleasure talking to you, even though it's on this topic of the Fugard Theatre closing its doors. But thanks for coming on to the show. Great talking to you. Theatre legend David Kramer talking to us there. After a year under lockdown, the Athol Fugard Theatre, that's in Cape Town, closing its doors. It was in operation, playing such an important role in Cape Town, a jewel in the crown of Cape Town, described there by David, the theatre closing its doors.